There you go.
Okay, awesome. So as an overview, today's session will be on assessment and sort of like goal setting, which is a nice foundational way to start the job search process. This graphic is an overview of the job search process. And so it's this cyclical graphic that includes self-assessment on the top right, which are things that we're going to be covering today. And that includes interest, skills, thinking about your experiences, as well as how do you prioritize the different components that you are seeking in a job search. The other workshops are going to cover the exploration and the research, which includes company research, looking for opportunities, assessing how positions are a fit for you, as well as understanding how to gather specific industry information. And then, of course, the job search process also involves looking at material and updating your material. And so that might include a resume, cover letter, CV. Some other documents that we have seen are also like diversity statements, or if you're doing research, there might be some things there. And so there's a variety of documents that we'll be kind of covering throughout the workshops. Next, we have interviews. And so once you start applying, you are likely to be invited in for an interview. And so the interview will kind of talk about how do you connect your skills with the position, really tailoring and articulating how your skills are fit for the position or the organization, as well as the job offer. And so the ultimate goal is to get to the offer. So we'll be talking about how to evaluate and negotiate those offers when they do come along. So we like to start with that overview, just so that you get an idea of what we're talking about today and how it fits into the bigger picture. And then I also want to talk a little bit about just the series in itself. And so we like to say that this series is a preparation for your job search. And so if you are either actively searching or you're going to be preparing to search in the next 1 to 2 years, this is a workshop and series that you can come back to. The resources are available on Canvas for you to come back to whenever you feel you're ready to engage with the material. And we do have a non-academic focus. That's the title, Jobs Beyond Academia and the Tenure Track. And so there's a lot of crossover, I'd say, between job searches for academia and non, as well as there are nuances to each of the job searches that can be unique. And so you will have a focus on opportunities that are more industry or beyond tenure type positions. And then the sessions can be done in isolation, but they are really meant to support one another. And throughout the presentations and the workshops, we'll have opportunities for you to reflect and to write, because that's a big part of the process. And our approach is really helping you understand what this information means for you and how you can apply it for yourself. Then we have a couple complementary resources that are on the Canvas site. And this presentation will be posted as a PDF along with the recording onto the Canvas site. Okay, so I've broken today's session down into 3 components. First, I'll be talking a little bit about interests, which is what do you like to do? What do you want to do? As well as why might you be pursuing the things that you are. The next component will be values. So what's important for you? Values also inform a lot of components when it comes to the job search. And so we'll be going over how values play a role in your job search journey, as well as skills. And so throughout the workshops, we're going to be talking a lot about skills, being able to identify them, as well as being able to communicate them and connect them to the position. And so that's an overview of the things that we'll be covering today. We'll start with interests. Okay, so interest can come from a variety of things. It can come from your dissertation or the research that you participated in. It can come from some of the courses that you've taught. It can also be specific things that you like to do, such as being a mentee or an advisor, any community engagement that you're a part of, as well as the workshops or trainings that you've done that you really enjoy the topic of, as well, and also personal hobbies that or passion projects that you're really excited about. And so when we think about interests, there could be a wide variety. And so we like to talk about it as you might not have one interest, but how do you pull out the things that are really connected to you and the things that you want to do within these greater interest areas. And so we like to say, identify your interests and then break them down. So the next slide kind of does that. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to talk about developing training. So let's say, for example, you've taught a class or you've engaged in some sort of opportunity where you got to facilitate a training. Within this particular task of developing training or facilitating training, there might be multiple components in there that you can really connect with that you enjoyed. And so these are some examples. Sharing knowledge, right? Do you enjoy the sharing of the information, or are you more interested in the researching of a topic and how that is delivered to an audience? What about actually creating the presentation? So you feel like that's a part of your style and the things that you are excited to do that may be connected to potential careers in the future. And then with training, there's lots of different styles that people facilitate. And so did you like presenting the information, or are you really engaged in the discussion portion of sharing that information? And so even within this very simple idea of developing training, you want to dig a little bit deeper so that you can identify the particular components that you enjoy within a task that you've completed or a project or experience that you've done. So I'll have folks pause here, and if you're watching the recording, I'll encourage you to pause here and just write down 3 of your interests, or it could also be 3 things that you worked on, or 1 thing you worked on and 3 things within that experience or project that you really enjoyed. And so I will just pause quickly and then give you maybe 30 seconds to 1 minute to do that. I'll also encourage folks to put it in the chat if you want to share anything. And Mackenzie, unfortunately, I can't see my time anymore, or actually maybe I just need to, never mind, I found it.
You're about 15 minutes in.
Okay, cool. The videos, the cameras were blocking it. And for a second, I was thinking, I can usually see my clock. Where did it go? Wonderful, thank you. So hopefully you've had a chance to either start thinking about your interests, reflecting on your experiences or projects, and started to document them for yourself. Because what we like to talk about breaking it down, because sometimes people get really caught up into job titles or key search terms. And what you really want to do to allow yourself the most opportunities is to look at those position descriptions, because the position descriptions is going to include the particular kind of task that the role is going to be asked to do. And those might vary from job to job, or there might be some similarities within different job titles that can allow you access to a variety of opportunities without being caught up in the title of a particular job that you're applying to. And so that's one of the reasons why we encourage you to think about your interests and the things that you like to do, so that you can have the most flexibility when you're job searching. All right, next we are going to talk a little bit about values. So values drives a lot of the way that we make decisions. It's going to influence the kind of employer or company that you. Okay, it's going to drive the kind of company or organization that you're looking for. It might also influence the location that you want to work at. And so geographically or modality, even, where are you interested in working? What about climate? Not everybody wants to stay in Minnesota if you're here for a program, or maybe you have support systems in a different place that you want to be closer to, or you're comfortable being further away for them. So location is also going to be influenced by the values that are important for you. Like, do you want access to particular hobbies or particular industries? That's also something to think about. And then impact. I think that more and more people are thinking about how personal values align with organizational values and how you can make impact through that. And then some folks are really just interested in being able to do the work, be able to do the work well, and have that satisfaction come from really excelling in their role. And so think about the impact that you personally want to make, either through your job or how your career can allow you to have access to different things within your lifestyle too. Personal motivation. This can be related to a lot of things. And so when you think of a career, lots of people go into careers for different reasons. Sometimes people are going into particular industries because of financial stability. Sometimes people are going into a particular role because it gives them access to a field. So it's kind of like a step in the door. Some people are looking for recognition, and whereas other folks are really satisfied with being able to have a career or a job that allows them to live a lifestyle that they want. So thinking about your personal motivations can also influence the way that you go about your job search. And then next we have health, your personal health, which includes physical, emotional, and psychological health. Is going to influence the way that you might go about your job search and the kind of information that you might disclose, or even also the locations and geographic spaces that you're in, as well as like physical buildings that you might be going into. And so when you're interviewing, it's helpful to think about, well, where is the door of the accessibility? Or do they have ramps? Things like that. And so does this feel like a safe space for me to be in? So health can play a big factor in that. And I think we've seen that over the pandemic, and that health is a big driver for modality, jobs, a lot of different components. And then we have work style. And so what kind of work styles do you thrive in, and how can you be aware of that when you're job searching, which might include like having opportunities to collaborate with others, or is this role more independent and self-autonomous? And so that's a good example of different work styles that influence your job search. And then we have work culture. Work culture is really the environment that you might be in, and having a deep understanding of the environments that you thrive in the most. And then we also have career growth. And so does this opportunity or a particular experience allow you to grow in your career and meet the goals that you've established for yourself? And so understanding if you have values related to that or where you want to go is going to be really essential. And then lastly, I have equity and social justice. And so if you're really excited about doing equity work, or you want it to be a part of your career, then thinking about how do you research organizations, understand their values and missions, and then also ask about it during the interview process is going to be really helpful for you to figure out if those values have an alignment with who you are and the impact that you want to make. So values has a big play in the way that you do your job search. And so that's why we talk about it. Let's see, these are a couple guiding questions that might be helpful for you to think about as you navigate your own understanding of values in the job search. So this might include, how do values play a role in your job search for your current situation? What are your priorities? Do you want a lot of alignment between your personal values and the organization? And then what are your highest priorities right now? On that list, we always recommend that students think about things that are most important for them. So if you are in a single income household, do you want to be a contributor, or is your family okay with being a single income household, and things like that? So that's just one example of priorities. And then what are your non-negotiable values? When it comes to job searching, sometimes as a candidate, it can feel really a little bit disempowering of, well, I don't have any influence of the kinds of offers I might be getting. And so we want you to have a deep understanding of what your non-negotiables are. And if you did negotiate them, what that would look like, so that you feel confident and comfortable accepting or denying an offer, or even applying to a particular job if it when it's posted. So values have a big contribution to the way that you go about your job search. Some misconceptions. So the next portion, I'm talking a little bit about some misconceptions about values related to academia and industry. And so we've kind of come up with this list based off of conversations, things that we've heard about folks who come from academia and the values that they might hold. Okay, I think that might be the end of my list. And so in the job search, there are going to be things that you have influence over, such as the kind of jobs you apply to, what you put on your resume, the things that you share in your interview, and then there are going to be things that you cannot control and you don't have influence over, such as biases and prejudice and misperceptions based off of backgrounds or qualifications. And so it's helpful to know what are the things that you have influence over and how you can do that, and then what are the things that you have to learn how to manage or accept or let go of that you don't have control over. And so I know that that's just one thing that we bring up so that you can understand how can I clearly communicate and articulate my skill so that I show up as the best fit candidate for this particular this position, and know that the way that they interpret who you are is not going to be something you can control, and that each individual is going to interpret who you are a little bit differently, but that you do have influence over that, and that you can understand how you want to present yourself and come from a place of authenticity and genuineness, so that when you go into spaces, there isn't pressure for you to feel like you're conforming into an identity that you don't align with. And so we like to present this just as a way for people to understand like biases and really frame the work that we do as encouraging you to be self-advocates and encouraging you to show up as your most genuine self, and that that's a part of your assessment process too, if you are showing up as your genuine, authentic self, and that they are not receptive of that, then maybe that's not a space for you to be in. And then we also have misperceptions of industry type values as well too. And so are you aware of your own biases, and are they preventing you from opportunities, or are you limiting yourself based off of maybe perceptions or stories and narratives that you're hearing from other folks? Because ultimately you can hear stories, you can get feedback, which is really meaningful to help you make decisions, but until you go into that space and you figure out if it's a space for you, you're not going to really know if it's a fit or not, or if it's a culture that you feel like you're able to navigate well. And so that's one of the reasons why we add this in here, so that you can have an understanding of biases that other people hold, as well as an understanding of your own biases too. Okay, and so on Canvas, we do have a tool. It's from Stanford that helps you helps to verbalize or put into writing some values, and then it can help you also sort them out too. And so this is a really great tool we highly recommend for folks to take a look at, so that you can start thinking about what values are most important for you. Okay. Next, we have skills. So we've talked about interests, we talked about values and how they play a key factor in how you navigate your job search. And then finally, we're going to talk about skills. So I've broken skills down to 3 categories. The first category here is technical skills. Technical skills are particular things that you know how to do that might have acquired from training or experiences. And oftentimes they are specific to a particular job. And so some examples might be data analysis, computer language, qualitative or quantitative research, writing, editing. Those are very technical skills that you can convey in your portfolio, your resume, through certificates or your degree, and also in your cover letter. The next category is interpersonal skills. So these are skills or behavior and traits that you might use to interact with other people or communicate with them. And sometimes these might be referred to as transferable skills, and that you can build them in one setting and you can use them in another. And so some examples might be communication, and communication is a big category. It can involve verbal communication, written communication, which also includes like technical skills, but interpersonal skills are how you connect with other people. So problem solving, project management, collaboration, how do you work in teams together? Those are all really good examples of interpersonal skills and how do you manage those relationships. The last category is personal skills. And so personal skills are characteristics that are often innate to who you are. It's also usually a reflection of how you do your work. And you can sometimes think of them as personality traits. And so are you an inquisitive person who's very curious? And so that's why you ask questions. Are you a creative big picture thinker where you like to have an idea of the goals of a project and then work your way backwards? And so it's helpful to know your personal styles of how you work so that you can also then communicate that throughout the job search process, and you have language for how to talk about that. And really, when you're able to share your personal styles for working, that's really when the employer can have a deeper understanding of how you might be a fit for the particular role or their culture as well too. And so knowing yourself and your personal attribute is a big part of being able to communicate your skills. That makes you a unique and uniquely qualified candidate. Okay, and so this next part is some skills that employers are looking for. And so this is from the 2018 National Association of Colleges and Employers. And at the top, you see communication skills, we see problem solving, ability to work in a team, showing initiative. So these skills are really high up there. And some of these encompass technical skills, but a lot of these are those interpersonal skills as well too. And of course, this was in 2018, so it's probably shifted a little bit. I'd say technology might be a little bit higher up there. But for graduate level, some things that you might include could be project management, interdisciplinary collaboration, because sometimes you might be working with folks from different spaces, or you might be doing research where you're working with communities. And so that could be how you convey your communication skills. Grant writing or writing in general, influencing, leadership, critical thinking, mentoring. Those are all really great skill sets that you can communicate from your graduate level courses that you've taken. So on Canvas, we also have this transferable skills checklist, which is a helpful way to identify the skills that you have, and then what are the skills that you are still working towards, and how can you build those skills. And so on the Canvas page, you'll also see that we have a link to the IDP, which is the Individual Development Plan from the graduate school. And what that is it pulls in your career goals and objectives and things that what you want to learn during your time as a graduate student, and intertwines it into your academia sort of path. And so this worksheet is really helpful because it can help you start to understand what are the skills you already have and what are the skills you're still hoping to learn. That could also be the skills that employers are looking for as well too. This next page here has a link to a couple other institutions that have really great resources around transferable skills. And so a couple of them are from Michigan. This third one here is Transferable Skills from Beyond the Professoriate, which U of M students currently have a subscription to, so you just have to make an account. And then lastly here, we have the University of Illinois, which has some graduate level transferable skills as well too. So these are some helpful ways to give you resources and how to talk about your skills. And it also allows you to start to be able to communicate that and connect that to positions or opportunities, even if you're applying to a graduate assistantship or graduate research opportunity, fellowships, research projects that you want to be a part of. This is a really great skill set that's not just for job searching, but for communicating and advocating for yourself in a variety of settings as well too. Okay, so again, I'll pause and I'll give folks an opportunity to stop and reflect. If you're watching the video, feel free to pause the video and answer these questions. So what are your unique skills, strengths, and perspectives that you bring? And so I will mute myself and give folks a minute or so to write or to put into the chat. All right, so I'll welcome folks back into the space. I saw in the chat that some folks have put down a couple things from the previous response. And so advocacy, qualitative research, knowledge sharing, that's from Jules. Let's see, leading teams, sharing knowledge, project planning, that's from Natalie. And so wonderful that you're thinking about things that you're interested in, as well as what are your unique contributions, because those are the connections that employers and recruiters are going to really be connected with. Because anybody can say, I can communicate, but if you can clearly articulate what's your style for communication, how it's impacted your work, or the results that it's impacted or relied to, those are the kinds of things that people are going to say, like, yes, this person can do it. They have skills and they've shown it in the past. And there's a question about Canvas. And so if I've mentioned this Canvas page a couple of times. When you registered for the course, you should have gotten a reminder email like yesterday or so, which include the link for this presentation, for this Zoom link, as well as a link to the Canvas page. And so we'll put it into the chat at the end again, but yeah, you should have the link to the Canvas page, and the Canvas page is public access. Anyone with a U of M login can access it, and you should be able to utilize any of the resources in there. We do have it set up so that the resources don't show up until I think a week before. It gives us a little bit of planning time and also allows for folks to manage it a little bit, because sometimes when you go on and you see all the resources, it can be a little intimidating. Cool. Okay, so those are the components that I'm going to talk about today. Interests, values, and skills, and how having a core understanding of those concepts are going to really support you in your job search process. The next part I'm going to talk about are goals. And so these are just some different strategies and how you can go about setting goals for yourself when it comes to your career. So this first one here is just some goal setting principles. So you want your goals to be clear. If you're a person that likes to make big goals, maybe breaking it down a little bit. So you want to be sure you have clarity around what you're trying to accomplish. And so maybe you're graduating in 1 year and you say, I'd like to have a job within X organization within 6 months after graduating, and then you can create the specific steps that you might need to get there. Goals can sometimes also be challenging. It can also kind of just be, where are you at? The way we think about job searching is, what is this next thing that you want to do? You can think about how it fits into a 5 or 10 or 20-year goal, but really thinking about just what's this next thing you want to do, and how do you challenge yourself to grow? We like to say, if you are meeting 100% of a job requirement, that probably means that you're a little overqualified and that you might not be growing in that opportunity. And so any job that you fit, let's say 60 and above % of the qualifications, is a good opportunity to apply to, because it'll allow you to grow. What's your commitment? So we know that many of you are students. You might be graduate assistants, you might be doing research, you might be parents, you might be caretakers, or you have all these other things that you're doing. And so we want you to be able to assess what's your commitment you can have to these goals and how can you break it down into smaller steps. Feedback's important, reflection is important. We really emphasize that. Do a check-in with yourself every month or so, or every couple of months, semesterly, so that you have an idea of how you're staying on track with where you want to go, and assess if the goals are still where you want to go as well too. And then task complexity. And so this one's really around, if you have these big goals, how do you break it down into smaller ones? Or if your particular task is too complicated, how can you break it down into smaller things? And so maybe one of your goals is to connect with 3 mechanical engineers and 3 different organizations. That's a pretty big task. And so let's break it down into, what questions would I ask them? How would I find them? What resources are available? So breaking down that task complexity. So these are kind of some goal setting principles that can be helpful as you think about what's your own style of goal setting. This next one here is called the Golden Circle by Simon Sinek. And so he talks about how if you start with your why of what kind of impact you want to make or what is your purpose, then you can kind of work backwards by identifying the strategies that you will use and then the specific actions that you'll take to make that impact or to reach your why. And this is just one example. So let's say I've identified and said that I want to change the way the world understands and impacts sustainable living. That's a pretty big why. And so one of the strategies I might come up with is to expand my connections in the field of sustainable practices. And maybe I say like, I want to connect with 3 people per semester. So that might be something that is in the action, or what specific things am I going to do? So researching and connecting with peers on LinkedIn, finding professional associations that I can join in, researching organizations that are working towards this mission, and connecting with folks. And so that could be one strategy that can help me get closer to this why or this impact that aligns with my career. So this is just one example of a goal setting strategy that you can use. Many of you might be familiar with SMART goals. And so SMART goals is an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And so this graphic here gives an example of what each of these might look like and mean. So I won't go over SMART goals too much because I feel like this is the one people are most familiar with. But this is another strategy that can be helpful when you're thinking about how do you set goals for yourself. And lastly, I encourage people to reflect on the past so that you can think about the future. And so I'll encourage folks to kind of pause here. If you're watching the video, go ahead and pause the video and stop and think, what styles of goal setting has worked for me in the past? What about it worked? What about it didn't work? How do I hold myself accountable? Things like that. And how might you tweak this style of goal setting to support your career goals? Based off of your current situation or the things that you now know about who you are and the way that you work. And so these are really great reflection questions. And I know I'm kind of getting close to the 45-minute mark. And so I won't pause here, but I encourage folks to think about these questions. Okay, so this slide kind of just talks about that goal setting, if done well for you, helps reduce stress and negativity. It's not meant as a way to create pressure, but for you to work towards those goals and for you to focus on building habits that allow you to get to where you want to go and to really celebrate the small victories. You got an interview, awesome, celebrate that. You applied to 5 jobs, that's fantastic, celebrate that. You get multiple offers, celebrate that as well too. And so sometimes it can be a stressful process, but if you allow yourself to celebrate the victories, it also helps sustain that positivity when it comes to job searching. Because just to be real, everybody here knows, everybody gets ghosted. That's a reality that happens to everyone. So it's helpful to celebrate along the way. And then analysis and problem solve obstacles that come up. Try different solutions. If you're doing something that isn't working or you feel like isn't connecting you or allowing you to make progress, talk to people, your peers. Come to your if your career office it supports graduate students, go and connect with them. Talk to your faculty members, your advisors. Those are really great support systems that can help you through this time. All right. Okay, and then these last page are just a couple of resources that I'll go through pretty quickly. This is a document on Canvas that can help you just support you through creating a timeline for job search. This one here are a couple assessment tools and guides that can be helpful. So I talked about Know Thyself, that's from Stanford. We also have Beyond the Professorate, and then all of the Canvas modules have this career preparation toolkits through, I think, UCLA. Let's see, I'll skip this one. This one kind of overviews how you can prioritize what the next step is for you. And so if you want to focus on your interests, these are some particular things you can do. If you're focusing on your values, these are some particular things. And then if you're focused on building skills, how can you do them? And the priorities worksheet, so thinking about what are the next things that you can do and arranging them in a way that feels comfortable with your current your workload. Cool. So the way that we've designed these workshops is to do a 30 to 45-ish minute presentation and then open up time for folks to ask questions. And so if you don't have any questions, you can feel free to log off now, but we're happy to engage with folks. And I'm going to stop my screen share so that we can provide a space and opportunity for you to ask any questions that might have come up so far or that you're interested in learning about. And then Neru also put in the evaluation in there. So we really appreciate evaluation because it helps us get a better idea of how to make improvements to these workshops. And so definitely please take a look at that. So it looks like there's been some conversation about the Canvas page. Canvas is kind of tricky.
I have a question, a little bit related, just done with my TA session. So where can we get the slide of this presentation? Or on Canvas, or you send through email? Or?